December 20th, 1943. The icy winds over Nazi-occupied Europe tore through the sky as the B-17F Jersey Bounce Jr. lumbered into formation. Among the crew, Technical Sergeant Forrest Lee Vossler, the radio operator, prepared for another perilous bombing mission deep into German territory. Their target, a heavily fortified industrial site in Bremen. Inside the aircraft, the engine's hum mixed with the radio's static. Vossler adjusted his headset and scanned the skies. His hands were steady, but his heart thudded.
All stations check in.
Crackled the pilot's voice.
Let's keep it tight.
The formation of B-17 flying fortresses cut through the gray skies in tight alignment. Below, the German countryside was blanketed with snow, its peaceful appearance hiding the deadliest anti-aircraft defenses of the war. Vossler took a deep breath, his gaze shifting between his radio controls and the guns he was tasked to man if needed.
Bandits inbound. 3 o'clock high.
The call jolted through the intercom, breaking the tense silence. Vossler craned his neck and spotted them, a swarm of Messerschmitt Beef 109 slicing through the air, like predators zeroing in on their prey. The defensive gunners on Jersey Bounce Jr. opened fire, their .50 caliber guns rattling as tracers streaked across the sky. The first wave of German fighters dove aggressively toward the formation. Explosions from flak bursts rocked the aircraft, sending vibrations through the fuselage.
Radio down.
Someone shouted. Vossler's priority shifted instantly. His hands moved deftly to restore the connection while shouting updates to the pilot. As he worked, a burst of fire peppered Jersey Bounce Jr.'s fuselage, ripping through its thin aluminum skin. Vossler was thrown against the bulkhead, his back searing with pain. Looking down, he saw blood staining his flight suit.
Damn it.
He muttered, forcing himself back to the controls. A deafening explosion ripped through the rear of the aircraft, sending shrapnel flying into the cabin. lived up, but a jagged piece of metal tore into his left leg, leaving a searing pain that momentarily blurred his vision. Gritted his teeth and dragged himself back to the nearest gun position, blood trailing behind him as icy wind whipped through the gaping holes in the fuselage. Jersey Bounce Jr. has endured the most harrowing moments of their journey, but the battle is far from over. As the dark clouds of fate loom ahead, what challenges await them? Bold decisions and life or death moments will unfold in the next chapter. You won't want to miss it. Let's uncover it together in the next part of this thrilling historical tale.
The Jersey Bounce Jr. crew survived the battle firestorm, but their life and death journey is far from over. Greater challenges and bolder decisions await them. Let's dive back into this intense story. The attack intensified. With the radio damaged, Vossler abandoned his station and rushed to the nearest gun position. Despite his injuries, he took over a .50 Dash caliber gun and began firing at the incoming Messerschmitts. The icy wind howled through the bullet-riddled fuselage, but Vossler focused on the tracers arcing toward the enemy fighters. One by one, the crew of Jersey Bounce Jr. fought to keep the bombers flying. The pilot shouted orders, weaving through flak bursts and evading enemy fire. Vossler felt his strength waning but kept firing until a direct hit disabled his gun. Sparks flew, and the metal burned his hands as he fell back, clutching his chest in pain. Amid the chaos, Vossler crawled back to his radio. His vision blurred, and his breathing was labored, but he knew the mission depended on him. He frantically patched the damaged system together with whatever wires he could salvage.
It's operational.
Finally, the crackling static of the radio returned.
This is Jersey Bounce Jr. heavily damaged. Request fighter support.
The reply came swiftly.
9 support inbound. Hold tight.
With reinforcements on their way, the crew of Jersey Bounce Jr. redoubled their efforts. Vossler, though injured, directed defensive fire and relayed crucial updates to the formation. His resilience inspired the crew, and together they managed to fend off several more attacks. As the bombers reached their target, the bay doors opened.
Bombs away.
Came the call. The payload fell toward the industrial site, erupting in a series of deafening explosions. The mission was a success, but the journey home loomed just as dangerous. On the return leg, Jersey Bounce Jr. limped along, trailing smoke and losing altitude. Vossler's hands trembled as he worked to keep the radio operational, calling out their position for rescue. Enemy fighters reappeared, taking advantage of the damaged bomber. The remaining gunners fired with precision, warding off the attacks just long enough for Allied fighters to arrive. As they crossed into friendly airspace, Vossler collapsed from exhaustion. The crew's relief was palpable as they prepared for an emergency landing. Despite the plane's extensive damage, the pilot brought it down safely. Vossler was carried off the aircraft, his flight suit soaked with blood, but his spirit unbroken. For his extraordinary courage and unwavering determination, Technical Sergeant Forrest Lee Vossler was awarded the Medal of Honor. His actions that day not only saved his crew, but ensured the mission's success, becoming a testament to the resilience and heroism of those who served during World War II. December 20th, 1943, remains etched in history as a day when one man's resolve turned the tide for his crew. Jersey Bounce Jr.'s story endures as a symbol of sacrifice, courage, and the unbreakable will of the human spirit. The journey doesn't end here. Many more thrilling and dramatic historical stories await you. Subscribe now to never miss the next chapter. Summer 1941. The world is at war. The skies burn with gunfire, and the ground trembles under the weight of advancing armies. In the midst of this chaos, a covert mission unfolds, one so secret that history almost erased it. A select group of Royal Air Force pilots is sent on a mission behind enemy lines, not to fight for Britain, but to save an ally they hardly trust, the Soviet Union. A British Hurricane locks onto a Messerschmitt Me-110 in the Arctic sky. The German plane, trailing smoke, desperately twists and rolls to evade its pursuer. The Hurricane's pilot grits his teeth and accelerates. A burst of .303 bullets rips through the enemy aircraft. The Messerschmitt Bf-110 plummets, but the Hurricane follows it down until both planes collide in a fiery explosion. Through the wreckage, a lone figure stumbles forward, not a British pilot, but Soviet aviator Zakhar Sarakin. The freezing wind howls as he looks around endless white tundra, no allies in sight. Surviving the crash was just the beginning. Now, he must survive the Arctic alone. June 1941. Operation Barbarossa begins. Within weeks, over 1,400 Soviet planes are obliterated. Luftwaffe bombers scorch cities to the ground. Stalin's forces, unprepared, are reeling. In desperation, Stalin makes an unthinkable request. He turns to Britain for help. He asks for Spitfires, the very planes that saved Britain during the Blitz. But Churchill refuses. Britain is still fighting for its own survival. Instead, he offers something different, the Hawker Hurricane. Not as fast as the Spitfire, but durable, lethal, and battle-tested. Yet, sending planes is not enough. Stalin needs pilots trained. He needs fighters willing to battle in Soviet skies. And so, number 151 Wing Royal Air Force is born. A band of British pilots flying into the unknown to fight in a war that is not theirs. July 28, 1941. Royal Air Force pilot Eric Carter stands in his family home in Birmingham, reading a brief telegram.
Return to unit immediately. Stop. Adjutant 456 Squadron. Stop.
No explanations, no farewells, just duty. Days later, Carter and 37 Royal Air Force pilots board SS Clan Stewart, still unaware of their true destination. As the ship cuts through Arctic waters, Icebergs looms like silent sentinels. The truth is revealed: they are heading to Soviet Russia, a land of ice, war, and uncertainty. After 10 days at sea, the British pilots step onto the frozen docks of Arkhangelsk. The cold bites through their uniforms. Soviet soldiers greet them with suspicion. There is no time for rest. "24 Hurricanes arrive in crates. In sub-zero temperatures, the Royal Air Force pilots and Soviet mechanics work side by side to assemble them. Fingers go numb. Metal cracks under the cold. But within 9 days, the aircraft roar to life. The Hurricane is no ordinary plane. It may lack the glamour of the Spitfire, but it is a beast built for war. 340 mile per hour top speed, 600-mile range, 420mm Hispano cannons, and bomb racks for ground attacks. Most importantly, it can take a beating and still fly. In the frozen hell of the Eastern Front, that resilience is the difference between life and death. The real test begins training Soviet pilots to fly British planes. But there is a problem. The Soviet pilots are reckless, aggressive, and stubborn. Many refuse to close cockpit hoods, believing it's unnecessary. Some don't raise landing gear, resulting in botched landings. After multiple crashes, Soviet General Alexander Alexandrovich Kuznetsov intervenes.
Any pilot who disobeys Royal Air Force instructions will be grounded.
The lesson is learned. The Soviets adapt fast. In less than 2 weeks, they are ready for war. War waits for no man. Days after arriving, 5 Hurricanes from number 150 one-winged Royal Air Force intercept a German formation, 1 Heinkel bomber, and 5 Messerschmitt Beef 109s. The Luftwaffe pilots are battle-hardened, ruthless. Outnumbered, the British attack first. Hurricanes dive, guns blazing. 3 B-109s explode in fireballs. The Heinkel spirals down, trailing black smoke. The remaining Germans. Victory. But it is only the beginning. As weeks pass, the war in the sky turns into a relentless hunt. Luftwaffe squadrons bomb supply lines, ambush Royal Air Force patrols, and harass Soviet troops. The British pilots fight back with everything they have. For 5 brutal weeks, the Royal Air Force flies 365 combat missions, scoring 16 confirmed kills and damaging 7 more German aircraft. The Luftwaffe feels their presence, but so does the Arctic. Blizzards turn the airfields into death traps. Engines freeze. Metal becomes brittle. Any mistake can mean death. Yet the pilots push on, battling both the enemy and the elements. Among the fearless warriors of the sky, one name rises above the rest of the Arsalan. Locked in a vicious dogfight, he makes a split-second decision. He rams his Hurricane into a Messerschmitt Me 110. Both planes go down. Sarakin crawls from the wreckage, stranded in the Arctic. No food. No shelter. 100 miles of frozen wasteland separates him from safety. For days, he fights through snowstorms. His body succumbs to frostbite. By the time he reaches his base, his feet are beyond saving. The doctors amputate. But Sarakin refuses to quit. With prosthetic feet, he climbs into another hurricane and fights again. By war's end, he claims 9 Luftwaffe kills. A warrior reborn. The aftermath, a forgotten chapter. By November 1941, number 151 Wings mission ends. The hurricanes remain, but the British pilots return home. Their sacrifices fade into obscurity. Over 3,000 hurricanes are delivered to the Soviet Union, playing a crucial role in stopping Hitler's advance. Yet Stalin erases the Royal Air Force involvement from history. He cannot allow the world to know the Soviets needed British help. For decades, the story remained buried until 1994, when Queen Elizabeth II visits Russia. She demands recognition for the forgotten British pilots. Only then does the world rediscover the Royal Air Force shadow killers. History is full of hidden battles and forgotten heroes. Subscribe now and uncover the secrets with us. The date, April 26, 1944. Above France, under a sky heavy with dread, a young flight officer, just 21, named Fred Mifflin, commands his Lancaster bomber. Tonight, he's one of over 200 aircraft piercing the darkness, aiming for vital German sites. But the enemy is waiting. Their radar anticipates every move. Suddenly, a deadly shadow emerges. A custom-built Messerschmitt Bf-110, armed with upward-firing cannons, slips beneath a vulnerable Lancaster and unleashes its attack. Inside Miff's cockpit, the crew witnesses a horrifying spectacle, a blinding flash, followed by the unmistakable silhouette of a bomber consumed by flames, painting the night sky with fire. The 7-man crew stares in disbelief as one of their own is shot out of the sky. Tonight, more Lancasters would meet the same grim fate. Closing in hot on the target, Miff's voice crackles over the intercom.
Strap in tight, boys. We're going in.
Behind him, flight engineer Norman Jackson is up in a flash, flipping his seat as the bomb aimer scrambles to his station. The Lancaster takes a brutal hit, the night exploding with flak as they close in on those German factories, each second a gamble against impossible odds. The plane convulses violently, and a shout blasts over the intercom.
We've taken a hit.
Flak explodes all around, tearing into the Lancaster's wing. But Miff's voice is a rock of calm.
Hold steady, boys. I've still got it. 60 seconds.
Flares on the ground, dropped by the Pathfinders, flood the target zone with light.
Target in sight. Bomb aimer. Take her away.
The bomb aimer locks his eyes on the target, and as the crosshairs drift over the flares, he slams the release.
Bombs away.
The payload is unleashed on the factory. Explosions erupt as the bombs find their mark. Miff wrestles back control of the Lancaster, turning her towards home. Now, all they crave is isolation in the dark. But at this altitude, German radar easily snags the large British bombers, and tonight they're directing a swarm of night fighters. FW-190s, also known as butcher birds, these ones are modified specifically for night hunting. Receiving instructions from the ground, an FW-190 pilot quickly locks onto the lumbering British plane in the moonlight. Tonight's perfect for a hunt. The Lancaster's got radar, but it's slung low, under its belly. Up high, the Focke-Wulf FW-190 is virtually undetectable. Inside the night fighter, the German pilot lines up his shot, the distant form of the Lancaster drifting into his sights in the clear moonlight.
Gotcha.
His finger hovers over the trigger, closing to within 50 meters. He unleashes hell. Cannons and machine guns erupt, and tracers streak toward the bomber's tail.
You're right.
I'm hit.
German 20mm shells tear through the tail, and tail gunner Norman Johnson is badly wounded.
Another one.
The Lancaster's turrets erupt in return fire, but the German pilot breaks off, climbing away into the darkness.
Keep your eyes open, boys. He's still out there.
The 190 reappears from 5 o'clock, unleashing a burst along the bomber's entire length, ripping through the fuselage and slamming into the right wing. With the tail gunner down, Myth knows they're in serious trouble if they want to make it out of this alive.
Hang on, men.
He throws the massive bomber into a spiraling dive, trying to shake the 190 with a wild corkscrew maneuver. Mifflin's a hell of a pilot, but the 190 is a superior machine. It can easily match the Lancaster's agility and speed. The 190 stays on their tail, firing across the aircraft. Shell explodes near the cockpit, and shrapnel riddles Norman Jackson's legs. He grit his teeth in pain, but then the cockpit lights up as flames erupt from the cannon holes in the wing, right next to the engine.
We're on fire.
The remaining turret gunner unloads everything he's got at the 190, but the German pilot breaks off again, disappearing into the night.
Bandit's gone. Not for long. Check on Johnson.
Jackson watches the fire spread rapidly, pouring out of the multiple cannon holes across the wing. If it burns too long, the wing will snap in half, or the fuel tank will blow sky high. Despite his injuries, he has a crazy idea.
Toft, Higgins, get over here.
Ignoring the shrapnel in his leg, Jackson tells the crew his insane plan.
I can go out there.
Where?
He plans to crawl out on the wing and put out the fire himself. All they have to do is hold onto his parachute, he tells them. The men are stunned, but Jackson's stone cold serious.
That's suicide.
Jackson knows the risks. He calmly prepares as he explains.
I might be able to put the fire out. If I do, you gotta pull me back in. If I don't, and I get blown off the wing, just feed out the parachute as best you can. What do you think, man?
Mifflin is in total shock. But Jackson's already shrugging off his wounds and unfurling his parachute. With no time to argue, the bomb aimer and navigator grab the parachute lines, and Jackson heads for the hatch.
Ready. Ready.
The hatch is ripped open, and freezing wind slams into the men. The deafening roar fills the bomber. Mifflin slows the plane as much as he dares, but they're still doing 180 miles an hour at 18,000 feet. Undeterred, Jackson slides out into the freezing wind. Back in the sky, Norman Jackson feels the wind slam into him, buffeting him relentlessly. Clutching an escape axe, he jams it into the plane's skin for support as he pulls himself completely out of the bomber, hanging on for dear life. The crew slowly feeds out the parachute as Jackson reaches for the wing, the fire lighting his way. With a massive effort, he makes it to the leading edge of the wing. He grabs the wing's edge and shuffles towards the fire, using his hand and the axe. Fueled by adrenaline, he gets right up to the flames. Using one hand, he pulls out the fire extinguisher as the burning heat of the steel sears through his glove. He shoves the extinguisher nozzle through the cannon hole and squeezes the handle. The wing fills with extinguisher powder, and amazingly, the flames start to die down.
He's doing it. It's working.
The heat burns his hands, but he keeps going, and miraculously, the flames recede until they're completely out. The flames are out. He can hardly believe it. He's going to make it home and see his family. Just hours before this mission, he learned that his wife had given birth to a son, but someone else spots the extinguished flames from above. The Focke-Wulf FW-190 dives again. The German pilot fires another burst, hitting Jackson's leg and right shoulder. He cries out in pain as the fuel tank beneath him cracks open. Fuel spills into the night, and a fireball erupts around him. He falls off, his body swinging in the airstream. Inside the plane, the crew feels his weight as the parachute lines tighten in their hands. The crew inside the Lancaster feel Jackson's weight as the parachute lines tense in their hands. They realize Jackson is gone, and they will not be able to get him back. They release the parachute, which is then sucked out into the night air and set alight by the fireball. The Lancaster lurches and rapidly loses altitude, and Mifflin gets the plane to a safer height and orders the crew to bail out. At the rear of the plane, one crew member is forced to abandon the critically wounded tail gunner. The crew jumps out into the night, and in the distance, they see their flaming Lancaster lose control. Mifflin makes the decision to crash land the plane to save the tail gunner, Norman Johnson, who is badly injured. Both men do not survive the crash. Incredibly, Jackson is still alive as a flaming parachute wheels and flaps in the night sky with him attached. He falls to the ground hard and Bush's break his fall, but both of his ankles are broken from the impact. Jackson is in terrible pain, with badly burned hands, wounds on his legs, and a bullet in his shoulder. He crawls towards a farmhouse for medical attention and is then taken prisoner and sent to a German prisoner of war camp. He makes a full recovery at the camp's hospital. The 5 survivors of the Lancaster stay in the camp until they are liberated in 1945. Jackson returns home and meets his son. He is awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions. Norman Cyril Jackson dies on March 26, 1994. Every story is a glimpse into history. Subscribe to FLYTOP and relive the most intense moments of war.
December 20th, 1943. The icy winds over Nazi-occupied Europe tore through the sky as the B-17F Jersey Bounce Jr. lumbered into formation. Among the crew, Technical Sergeant Forrest Lee Vossler, the radio operator, prepared for another perilous bombing mission deep into German territory. Their target, a heavily fortified industrial site in Bremen. Inside the aircraft, the engine's hum mixed with the radio's static. Vossler adjusted his headset and scanned the skies. His hands were steady, but his heart thudded.
All stations check in.
Crackled the pilot's voice.
Let's keep it tight.
The formation of B-17 flying fortresses cut through the gray skies in tight alignment. Below, the German countryside was with snow, its peaceful appearance hiding the deadliest anti-aircraft defenses of the war. Vossler took a deep breath, his gaze shifting between his radio controls and the guns he was